Karen and I have made several biking trips to Europe the past few years, first taking our own bikes on the airplane, then using rental bikes with varying degrees of success. We decided that if we were going to continue doing this, it would be worthwhile to get our own bikes designed for air travel. After researching various options, we decided to order custom-fit and configured Bike Fridays that fit into standard airline checkable suitcases, which then become trailers for luggage. Of course, to make the purchase worthwhile, we needed to use them. After some discussion and much research on Karen's part, we flew from Colorado Springs to Paris, France. Boarding the TGV in Paris, we hefted our bike cases into the overhead rack and settled in for a 2-hour ride to Blois on the Loire River. There we unpacked our bikes and rode 10K along the river to our first gîte in the small village of Saint Claude de Ré. A gîte is a furnished cottage or apartment, complete with kitchen, which is usually rented by the week. Our first gîte was a small modern one-bedroom apartment at one end of an old stone farm building that had been remodeled. Our second week was 6K from the Chinon train station in the small village of Senai. The village was quite quaint, and the gîte was nice and roomy inside, and had nice views from upstairs looking over the countryside. However, our front yard had become a temporary construction zone for the week we were there. It was raining the day we moved to our third gîte in the small village of Poussy-sur-Sissy near Ambus. Although there was only the two of us, the large rooms could easily have handled 8. With all the space in the private patio garden, this was easily our favorite gîte, even though it rained a lot that week. People have lived in troglodyte cave dwellings along the Loire River Valley as far back as the 12th century. I was amused by the chrono-contrast of the satellite dishes on ancient cave dwellings. The troglodyte pigeonniere behind our gîte was the largest one in the area. There are also structures in the area that date back to 5000 BC, and evidence of habitation going back 90,000 years. In addition to homes, there are caves used for restaurants, growing mushrooms, and wineries. Moving at the end of each week was always an adventure, and we had to move whether it was raining or not. Newer, smaller trains usually accommodated bicycles and luggage well, but space was limited on several trains. This was cramped even further by some people who chose to sit on the little fold-out seats in the baggage areas. One train was so full we had to stand for 2 hours. A memorable adventure was riding across Paris from Austerlitz train station to Gare du Nord through the Place de la Bastille and along the Canal Saint-Martin during the morning rush hour, then finding an out-of-the-way place to pack our bikes. After getting settled into a new gîte, it was time to get out and explore. Every moment presented unique sights with quiet lanes, country vistas, medieval buildings, flowers, and farm animals. Most roads and paths were well surfaced, with one notable exception. I seemed to have a fondness for exploring different routes. We were creatively following a road along the Loire River when it gradually deteriorated to this muddy track. We had to bushwhack our way back to pavement. Forests around the Loire planted in rows and at graduated stages of growth, more like farming trees than natural forestation. History is abundant in the Loire River Valley, and much of it centers around the numerous chateaux or castles. Chambord is one of the most famous chateaux. It was built in the early 1500s as a hunting lodge. Its double helical staircase may have been designed by Leonardo da Vinci. Chambord was a residence of French kings up to the Revolution. Chambord Forest is enclosed by a 48-kilometer-long wall, making it the largest enclosed forest park in Europe. These former hunting grounds are popular today for hiking, horseback riding, and mountain biking. Cheverny is still privately owned by a descendant of the original family. Remarkably, it still has many of the original furnishings and an active hunting lodge. Chinon's show was given by the king to his mistress, who had a bridge built connecting to the south side of the Cher River and added formal gardens. The king died, and his wife forced the mistress to give back the chateau. She then added her own formal gardens and a gallery on top of the bridge. The gallery was used as a hospital in World War I. In World War II, the chateau on the north side of the river was on the German-occupied side, while the south side was in Free Vichy France. A few people were able to enter the chateau and escape through a door at the south end of the gallery. Despite its unique setting in the middle of a river, Azay-le-Rideau is most famous for its innovative central staircase. Many chateaux were originally fortresses and later rebuilt. However, the 10th century Chateau de Langeais retains its fortified appearance. The Chateau d'Ussy was the inspiration for the story of Sleeping Beauty. It was also a model for the Cinderella Castle at Disney World. Chateau d'Ambus was the residence of several notable French kings. It was the boyhood home of Richard Lionheart. The French wars of religion were presaged when a conspiracy to overthrow the crown was suppressed, and up to 1,500 Huguenots were hung from the castle. Leonardo da Vinci was invited by Francois I to Le Vaucluse, which was connected to Chateau d'Ambus by underground passages. This narrow way shows on maps as a road. Modern tourists keep a watchful eye out for necessary infrastructure. We inadvertently wandered onto the grounds of this private estate. The main chateau was demolished in the 1820s. However, the owner, who was a descendant of the original family, offered to show us around the servants' compound, which they now occupy. We learned that each niche in a pigeonniere represents an acre of land. Thus, the larger the pigeonniere, the wealthier the owner. This pigeonniere has over 1,500 niches. Some chateaux are hidden away, while others may only be seen from afar. Some have been converted to B&Bs, and others have become hotels. You may think this is a lot of bull, or missing a few bricks, but after a while you begin to experience what the English call ABC syndrome, another bloody chateau. Chinon is where Joan of Arc came to encourage Charles VII to become king. When she arrived at this spot, she dismounted her horse to freshen up at a well before going to find Henry in the chateau. The Abbey of Fontevraud was a burial place of early Plantagenet royalty, including Henry II, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and their son, Richard Lionheart. The abbey included orders of both nuns and monks, but the head was always a nun. It was one of the largest monasteries in Europe until the French Revolution, then was a prison until 1963. It has been largely restored since. One of the unique features is the Romanesque kitchen with its large open hearths. Much of the medieval art, history, and accessible sites in Europe are in churches, so we visit a lot of churches even though we are not Catholic. This one, tucked in between other buildings in a small village, is the oldest Marianist church in France. There has been a church dedicated to Mary on this site since 300 AD. Saint Martin of Tours died in Candace Saint Martin in 397 AD while trying to settle a religious dispute. Legend has it that his body was secretly removed one night and taken by boat up the Loire to Tours, from where pieces were distributed around Europe and beyond to be venerated. Saint Di was a contemporary of Saint Martin, but wasn't a bishop and didn't have as good a press agent. This church is unique in that Saint Di's body is still in residence instead of having been parted out as relics. Anonymity sometimes has its advantages. The arches and roof of this 11th century Romanesque church are wood rather than stone. Medieval churches are often extravagantly adorned with several hundred years of endowments, along with varying concepts of worship. Note the contrast between the stained glass windows of the 13th century Church of the Holy Blood in Bruges, the 17th century Reformed Church in De Rip, and the plain windows of the Doopsgezint admonitions in Haarlem and Friesland. We particularly appreciate the open-air markets. Having our own kitchen allows us to prepare our own meals and enjoy many of the different things we find. Besides the fun of figuring out what to buy and how to fix it, it's a lot less expensive than eating out. Even with low dollar to euro exchange rates, by fixing our own food, costs were essentially the same as at home. Inexpensive dinners cost us about $60 the 3 times we ate out. We usually took a picnic for lunch, not only to save money, but to relax and enjoy the scenery. These were some of our picnic settings. Our 4th week was a timeshare exchange in Netherlands near Beekbergen and Apeldoorn. This is the Dutch hill country with the highest point about 400 feet. This man-made cascade is the highest waterfall in the Netherlands. Until recently, the Palace of Het Loo was the country residence of the Dutch royal family. It is now open for public tours, generating revenue to allow the very recent restoration of the gardens. De Hoogvelde is a national park about 1/3 the size of Colorado Springs. There are no automobile roads, but white bicycles are available for free use within the park. The Kröller-Müller Museum in the park is world famous for its large collection of paintings by Vincent van Gogh and many others. It is also one of the largest sculpture gardens in Europe. This is not a radio tower, but a freestanding sculpture. This is not a sculpture, but a stump in the sand dunes of the park. From Apeldoorn, we went to Bruges in Belgium for a few days. Bruges was once the center of worldwide commerce, but its prominence began to dry up when access to the sea silted up in the 16th century. Bruges was also spared the ravages of World Wars I and II, preserving the medieval city. The market square, which is in front of the city hall and the bell tower, has always been a central focus for historical events. Bruges' development depended on canals, earning it a nickname, Venice of the North. The Beguinage dates back to 1245 A.D. Beguines were women who lived together in a religious community, but not as nuns. While there are no longer any Beguines, the Beguinages still provide quiet communities for single women. Lace might have been made as far back as ancient Rome, but the earliest known lace making starts in 15th century Bruges. Handmade bobbin lace is still made in Bruges. We rode from Bruges to Ghent one day along the Ghent Canal, where we visited Het Gravenstein Castle, a sobering experience on a good day. On to Friesland, we stayed with this couple in their house that was built in 1697. Some of these tiles are original to the house. Our bedroom overlooked a canal that was once the main street of the town. We could watch the sunset over the IJsselmeer. In the mornings, we were greeted by the cat peeking in the window. In Friesland, we rode along the dikes, past Kopholz Romp farms, or Hednack Body farms, and Stolp, or Belglass farms, through villages with oddly familiar-sounding names, and found historical sites going back to the Reformation and beyond. This bike path is on top of a dike that is over 1,000 years old. From Friesland, we took a bicycle pedestrian ferry across the IJsselmeer. The IJsselmeer used to be the Zuiderzee until it was closed off by the 32-kilometer-long Afluitsdijk in 1932. After visiting the Zuiderzee Folk Museum in Enkhuizen, we rode along the IJsselmeer to Purmerend in North Holland, where we enjoyed the gardens at our B&B cottage. Zaandam in North Holland was one of Europe's earliest industrial areas, powered by wind. Tsar Peter the Great came here to study shipbuilding in his efforts to westernize Russia. Adem is well known for its cheese. I was amused by Adem's flag, which features a cow in the center. The Beemster was once a lake that was drained using dikes and windmill-powered pumps. It is one of Netherlands' oldest polders and is a World Heritage Site. No pesticides are allowed to be used, and the unique flavor of cheese from the Beemster is famous worldwide. We also chanced to cross several of the forts that made up the Amsterdam defense line, which is also a World Heritage Site. The 42 forts formed a circle around Amsterdam that was 20 miles across. Areas outside the circle could be flooded a foot deep, too shallow for boats and too deep for wagons, horses, or foot soldiers. With the invention of the airplane, the defense line became obsolete before it was completed. We visited the Ten Boom, or Hiding Place Museum in Haarlem, where the Ten Boom family hid Jews from the Nazis during World War II. They were all arrested and sent to concentration camps. Only Corrie survived and later wrote several books about the experience and forgiveness. Wind power was used to recover much of the land which is below sea level, as well as power the country's early industrialization. Dike building and maintenance is an ongoing fact of life in the Netherlands. Pumps are mostly powered by electricity today. Ironically, much of the electricity is wind-generated. Nuclear generation accounts for about 15% of energy use. However, oil is still the largest energy source for Europe. After 6 weeks, it was finally time to go home. We were able to get a glimpse of Greenland's disappearing ice on the flight home. The remainder of the slides, loosely arranged in groups, is an entertaining collage of mostly bicycle-related photos. They go by quickly, so pay close attention in order to catch subtle details like bicycle infrastructure and construction, and cycling clothes, footwear, accessories, activities, and locations.